What's good? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be chopping up some samples, but not just any sample. We're actually going to be making our own sample from scratch in Ableton Live. I'll go ahead and play the demo for you guys real quick, and then we'll jump right into it. So that was a sample we're going to create. Let me play the finished product for you guys. So first thing we're going to do is build a chord progression. I'll be using Addictive Keys for this. So I'm going to layer the electric pianos with some strings. For the strings, I'm going to use BBC Symphony Orchestra by Spitfire, and I'm just going to use the same MIDI chord progression that we recorded. I'll just highlight this, hit Command C, and then go down to our new track and hit Command V to paste it in here. And here's what it sounds like together. So next thing we're going to do is layer this with some spiccato strings. And because I'm going to be using BBC again, I'll just be selecting the track, hitting Command D. This will duplicate the track along with the MIDI. We'll open up BBC and we'll select spiccato. So we're going to utilize one of Ableton's newer features. We'll double click our MIDI clip. And once we're in this view here, we'll hit Command A to select all the MIDI notes. And then we'll go into the advanced features or advanced MIDI controls. We'll hit the down arrow next to arpeggiate, and then we'll select chop. So basically what it does is it chops up your MIDI notes into different parts. And I'm just going to play around with this until we come up with something dope. All right, next thing we'll do is layer this with some brass. All right, so we have our foundation. Now let's layer some melodies on top of this. For the first melody, I'm going to use the clarinets. All right, so far this is sounding pretty dope. I'm just going to add one more layer to this. All right, so what I'm going to do next is highlight all my tracks, hit Command G. This will put it into a folder, and I'm just going to do some quick mixing in here real quick. So what I did here was I added some RC20, a little EQ, and some compression. The RC20 I added just to give it more of a vintage feel. I used the VHS preset. I did tweak these parameters a little bit. I turned down the noise, turned off the EQ, increased my width back to 100%, and I also turned down magnetic and digital. So here's what it sounds like with the additional processing on the group level. So now all we have to do is resample this. I'm going to hit Command T to create a new audio track. I'll record enable this, and then I'll select resampling in my in and outs. Alright, so now that we have our sample, we can go ahead and open up Simpler and just drag and drop this into our Simpler. So in Simpler, we can go down to Slice. I'll set my Slice by to Beat, and we'll do quarter notes for now, keep it at mono. And now we have our chops. I'm actually going to update our BPM. We're going to speed it up to 157 BPMs. Here's a really interesting technique that I like to do in Ableton. I'll drag an arpeggiator in front of the Simpler. I'll set the style to con and diverge. We'll set the rate to, I guess, a quarter note for now, and then we'll bump the step to 1. And once we have this set up, we can actually just play like a series of notes or chops, and the arpeggiator will just cycle through all of these different chops for us. And this technique is actually really interesting because depending on how many notes you're holding down, the arpeggiator will just do its thing, and in a lot of cases, it'll actually create like some pretty interesting chops you normally wouldn't think of. And just to enhance that, what we can also do is go over to our audio effects, we'll drag and drop an LFO, and we can actually map this LFO to our rate. So now we have our LFO controlling our rate knob in the arpeggiator. And what we can do is we can just mess around with some of these parameters here. I'm going to bring the depth down to about 50%. So now when we hold down notes, it creates even more variation and just different types of chops. It's crazy. Another thing that I really like to do when I'm working with samples is using the repeat function on the push 2. So I'll select repeat, and then I'll go to 1/32 notes. So we get like this repeat going on. So I'm gonna just play around with this real quick, and then we'll see what we come up with. Alright, so let's record some of these chops in here. Alright, so we created our sample, we got our chops in. Now all we have to do is just build a beat around it. I'm going to add some kicks and claps in here. We'll get some hi-hats going. We'll add additional perks in here. I'm going to add an 808 to this, and per usual, I'll be using Anna 2 for this, and the preset that I'll be using is called Humble. I do want to add another melody on top of this, and for that I'm going to be using MELLOTRON. The preset I'm using is called April Showers. So let's get this recorded in. So that's how you can create your own samples and transform them inside of Ableton Live. Remember to experiment, get creative, and just have fun with it. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave me a like and subscribe for more beat making videos and tutorials. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.